It's 2012, and there's a teenager in Birmingham doing pizza deliveries at night to save up enough money to buy sewing machines. He's not studying fashion, he doesn't have a business mentor, he has no connections in the fitness industry, and he has basically no money. He's just a 19-year-old kid who's obsessed with the gym and frustrated that he can't find workout clothes that actually fit him properly. That's it. That's the whole origin story of one of the fastest growing companies in British history. Because that teenager was Ben Francis, and the brand he was stitching together in his mum's garage between pizza deliveries would eventually become Gymshark, a company now valued at over £1 billion. But here's the thing that makes this story really interesting. It wasn't just hard work that got Gymshark there. Plenty of people work hard and go nowhere. What Ben did, almost entirely by instinct, was figure out a way to build a brand at a time when the old rules of marketing were completely falling apart. And he did it before most major companies even understood what was happening. So to understand how he pulled this off, you have to go back to the problem he was actually solving. Ben was young, he was into fitness, and he wanted gym wear that looked good on a muscular physique. The stuff in mainstream sports shops at the time was either baggy, boring, or built for runners, not lifters. There was a real gap. And so in 2012, Ben and his school friend Lewis Morgan registered Gymshark as a company with about £500 between them, bought a screen printing machine and a sewing machine, and started making gym vests and t-shirts from scratch in the garage. Now, the early stuff wasn't exactly high fashion. Ben himself has admitted that the first products were pretty rough, but that didn't matter as much as what he did next, because this is where things get clever. Ben was spending a lot of time on YouTube, not just watching workout videos for fun, but genuinely studying the fitness creators who were building massive audiences at the time. Guys like Nikki Blackketter, Chris Lovato, and Lex Griffin were people with hundreds of thousands of followers who the fitness community genuinely trusted and looked up to. They weren't celebrities in the traditional sense. They were just real people who posted consistently and built real relationships with their audience. And Ben had this instinct that if he could get his products onto those people, it would mean far more than any magazine ad ever could. So what did he do? He started sending free products to these fitness YouTubers. Not as a formal paid partnership, not through some agency, just directly reaching out and sending them clothes and hoping they'd wear them. And a lot of them did, because the products were actually good, the branding was clean, and frankly, getting free gym gear when you're a YouTuber just starting is genuinely useful. This was influencer marketing before anyone was really calling it influencer marketing. And the timing was almost perfect because social media was still young enough that audiences trusted creators completely. There was no cynicism yet about paid promotions, no eye-rolling at sponsored content. When someone you followed wore a brand, it felt like a genuine recommendation. So Gymshark got the halo effect of being associated with people the fitness community already loved, and it cost them almost nothing compared to what traditional advertising would have cost. But what made it really work was who Ben chose to partner with. He wasn't just going after the biggest names, he was picking people who genuinely embodied the Gymshark customer. Young, aesthetic, gym-focused, aspirational, but also relatable. When someone who looks like that wears your brand and has millions of followers watching their every workout, it doesn't just sell a product, it sells an identity, and that's a completely different thing. Because this is the psychology at the heart of Gymshark's success. People don't just buy gym clothes to keep warm. They buy them as a statement about who they are or who they want to become. They want to feel like an athlete, like they belong to that world, like they're serious about this. And if the people you look up to in fitness are wearing Gymshark, then Gymshark becomes part of that identity. It becomes what serious gym people wear. That's an association money genuinely can't buy, but apparently, a box of free hoodies can. And then in 2013, something happened that really lit the fuse. Gymshark got a stand at the BodyPower Expo, which was one of the biggest fitness events in the UK at the time. They'd already been building this community online, sending products to these creators, and suddenly, that online energy translated into something physical. People queued for hours to meet the Gymshark athletes and get their hands on the products. It caused scenes. The stand ran out of stock, and that moment confirmed something important. This wasn't just a brand people liked, it was a brand people felt connected to in an almost emotional way. That distinction matters a lot, because there's a big difference between a brand someone purchases from and a brand someone belongs to. Nike is a brand people purchase from. Gymshark, especially in those early years, felt more like a community, and Ben was very deliberate about nurturing that. He was active on social media himself, replying to customers, showing the behind the scenes of building the business, and being genuinely transparent about the journey. It created this sense that you were following a real person building something real, not a corporation pushing products at you. Now, obviously, it wasn't all smooth sailing. In 2015, Gymshark had what became known as the Black Friday crash. They'd grown so quickly and the demand on their website was so overwhelming that the whole site went down on one of the biggest shopping days of the year. They lost somewhere around £500,000 in sales in a matter of hours. Ben was devastated, but rather than hiding from it, he went on social media and apologized directly to customers, personally and openly. And weirdly, that moment probably made people like the brand more, because again, it felt human. It felt real. A faceless corporation would have put out a press release. Ben just said sorry. money. By the time Gymshark hit about £100 million in revenue, which happened in 2018, the brand had grown almost entirely through this model, digital-first, community-led, influencer-driven, with barely any traditional advertising at all. And then in 2020, the American private equity firm General Atlantic bought a 21% stake in the company, valuing Gymshark at £1.45 billion, making Ben Francis, still only in his late 20s at that point, a billionaire on paper. But here's the part of the story that often gets glossed over. At around the point Gymshark really started scaling, Ben actually stepped down as CEO. He recognized that running a company at that size required a different set of skills than the ones he'd used to build it, so he brought in Steve Hewitt, who'd been with the company since the early days, and Ben moved into a different role focused on product and brand. Then in 2021, he came back as CEO again, and that cycle, stepping back, being honest about his own limitations, then returning, says something about how he approaches things. There's a self-awareness there that you don't always see in founders. And the reason Gymshark has continued to grow while other brands that tried to copy the same influencer model have faded away is probably that. The influencer model was the tactic, but the foundation beneath it was a genuine product people wanted, a community that felt real, and a founder who cared enough about the brand to think of it as a culture rather than just a revenue stream. Plenty of companies looked at what Gymshark was doing and thought, right, we just need to pay some fitness influencers and we'll get the same result. And they didn't, because by the time everyone else was doing it, the audiences had become more cynical, the market had become more crowded, and the authenticity that made early Gymshark partnerships feel special was gone. The window Ben jumped through was narrow. He just happened to jump through it at exactly the right time, with the right product, and with enough genuine passion for the thing he was building that people could feel it. Which brings you back to where this whole thing started. A teenager in Birmingham sews gym vests by hand, delivering pizzas at night to fund the machines, with no real plan except that he knew what he wanted and couldn't find it anywhere. Sometimes that's genuinely all it takes. The problem is that most people see the billion-pound valuation and assume there must have been some secret formula, some genius master plan. But the actual story is messier and more human than that. It's just a guy who loved the gym, spotted a gap, and figured out how to talk to people in a way that felt real at a moment when that was incredibly rare. And in a world absolutely drowning in brands trying to sell you things, that's probably the rarest thing of all.